What if we do? So what if they do?
We're gonna ask
So
Jesse
what if
what
they
it's
do?
okay. Hello. Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. At KMET 1490 AM ABC News Live, ABC News Radio Live. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist, offering you at this hour a program on human sexuality and sexual healthcare. And with me, I have my very best friend, my very good mentor, my colleague, my business partner, just to name a few things that that we have together, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who's also a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified hypnotherapist. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What a nice introduction.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's all true, isn't it? You're a best friend that anybody wants to have. Seriously. I mean, you're so kind, you're so gentle, you're always there, So
Yeah.
just to name a few things.
Well, thank you.
You have your moments.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, wherever I am, I'm here.
You're
So
here.
I'm always here.
You're always here.
Yeah.
And, across the past 17 years, we have been there for each other. We have worked hard. And this program is the result of one of those, collaboration that we have had together. One of those efforts that we have had together.
Indeed it is.
Right?
Indeed it is.
And we are offering, years of combined experiences.
Mm-hmm.
About what we both love, to provide the most, which is mine is, human sexuality and what to do to enhance, quality of life that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yours is addictions, traumas, and, codependency, just to name a few, and I'm so happy that we have this opportunity to do this together.
It's very lovely. It would be very nice if we could have somebody reach out and ask us a question or share their experiences. So please feel free to do that. You can call us during this hour. Our number is 951-922-3532. Or you can look us up on our page.
Facebook.
On a Facebook page, yes. Yeah.
Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart.
HEARTTO to Heart. HEART. And we are there for you. You can also visit us at KMET webpage on their Facebook Live, and also you can visit us at our Facebook. So we are available to you. All you have to do is just reach out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. So this show, this 1 hour is going to be on one aspect of human sexuality. And I see that you wrote it down. It's going to be about myths and facts about therapy.
About therapy and or sex therapy, where, I've been asked by a variety of people who actually, at first they're not my clients, and then they become my clients. An interesting thing happened. I went to have lunch. On Monday, I had to go to a meeting, and I got, after my meeting, I realized that I was very hungry.
Mm.
So I decided to go to one of my favorite restaurants in the area, and I did. And across the table, there was this young man who was sitting there by himself. And he saw my appetizer, and he reached out to it like that, and he said, "What did you order? Looks pretty." And I told him what it was, right? So he ordered the same thing, and then he saw my main dish, and he said, "Oh my God, what is that? What did you order?" So I told him what I ordered, right? And then he said that he's often there. He was about maybe like 40, 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just started to talk,
mm-hmm.
right? He at his table and myself at my table. So it was kind of loud, kind of a talk, but there were not that many people around, so we were not bothering anybody. And then he asked me, what do you do? So I told him I'm a psychotherapist, and I focus on human sexuality. And he jumped out of his seat and he said, oh my God, so can you tell me about that? So I explained a few things which I'm going to explain here today. And then he said he never thought of it that way. He thought that, when we talk about sex therapy, we actually are going to have hands-on experience of, what to do and all of that. And I said, no, that's exactly what is not happening, It's just a form of therapy, just like any other form of therapy. And then he talked about his beliefs about therapy. And I realized, my God, he's not the only one who's been, thinking that way about therapy. There is so much myth going on in society. And I thought, you know what, maybe I can, dedicate the program for today about that, about what do general public believes about therapy, what are some of the myths that's going on among people, so that we can talk when we talk about sex therapy or any type of therapy. I think there are a good group of people that they need education about that, and not just focusing on the myths. Because what's happening when they focus on the myths, they're actually eliminating quality care about themselves. They actually are not able to realize, where they can get help for what's going on in their lives.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of our conversation, which basically I was there maybe about half an hour to 40 minutes altogether, he asked for my business card.
Oh, okay.
But he was looking around to see if anybody's watching that. And that was, to me, that was interesting. We talked about therapy and, sex therapy and all of that, but he was careful when somebody to find out if he's, if he's asking for taking my business card, Embarrassed, kind of, yes. And I thanked him for asking for my business card.
Oh,
and
okay.
I offered it to him just like that, I put my hands like a tray, and I thank him for asking for my business card and asking me the questions that he did. And I thought that was so, courageous of him to do that. That was so, the fact that he met me right there and trusted me to ask me those questions. And so that was very good to
Sounds
hear.
like a very interesting, fun, and worthwhile experience.
It was. He ordered my food.
Well, you're lucky he didn't ask you to pay the bill.
No. And but it was a nice conversation, which helped me to come up with the topic about today. Myths and facts about therapy and about sex therapy. Basically, people, and I had a new client like 2 weeks ago, and then when she came in here with her husband, he said, okay, don't you think that I'm going to sit here and complain about my mother? And I said, okay, I mean, I don't know if the subject of her mother is going to come up, but if it happens, I'm going to help her understand why the subject comes up, right? And then she said, she loves her mom so much, and she knows that her mom did the best for her. And I said that I'm certain that mothers do that, So she already had this guard, right? That mental guard that I will go ahead and say, oh, your mother did this or your mother did that. And when I also, remember that this is something that other people think, that we are attacking their parents. When we say, oh, well, what happened during your childhood, it is as though we are attacking or blaming, their parents.
I think that that's a very important point that you're making, because people have loyalty toward their parents, and in most cases have love in addition to loyalty, but also they often don't want to think that their parents did anything that wasn't good for them.
Right.
And of course, that is not the case in most situations because our parents are first and foremost human beings. And human beings make mistakes. Human beings have ideas that are not necessarily positive. Um, and so, but what happens is because of the loyalty, people feel very protective and defensive of their parents.
And we're talking about mental loyalty, mental, emotional loyalty.
As opposed to what?
And also, I mean, it goes both ways. It goes, in other words, I was going to say conscious and subconscious loyalty.
Right. Yeah. But the loyalty is usually, it's usually to say, I don't want to think anything negative, and I don't want you to think anything negative about them. And so what that does is it keeps us from understanding the things that our parents gave us that were less than helpful. And there are always things that our parents gave us that are less than helpful. And that doesn't mean that they were bad parents, and it doesn't mean that they didn't love us. But if we can't look at those things objectively and say, okay, this was an idea that they had from their childhood, they didn't know any better, but they passed this down to me, and it really wasn't a thing that served me. That's where we can begin to reevaluate and change the things about us that aren't working.
Yes, that is true. And also, in addition to that, which was very well explained, there is a matter of how ourselves as children give and attach meanings to what we see about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So my mom may act in a certain way, which actually you have made a reference about that a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, when you saw your mom cooking and you were sitting there, you wanted your mom to pay attention to you, and because she was busy cooking, you thought that she may not like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right.
So, you know, as children, we assign meanings to what we see, what we feel, what we experience, and that meanings become sort of a blueprint in our mind. And we operate based on that perspective without even recognizing that.
Because we did it privately.
We did it
privately. Yeah. We didn't say to our Mom, you're not paying attention to me.
Right.
We just thought it. And maybe if we saw, like in your case, saw your mom cooking a number of times and she actually didn't pay attention to you, you could have had that belief that she didn't like you, even though it really wasn't the case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like another example is that, you know, another client said that her mom never let her do anything and she always provided for her.
Mm-hmm.
So now that client today, she believes she's handicapped without her mother.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So there is so much to talk about this, and our commercial break is coming up, and I would like to invite you to please contact us, call us 951-922-3532, and see you after a few short minutes. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC Radio Live. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here. We're talking about, you know, what is sex therapy, what is all this all about in general, and, you know, going over some of the misconceptions about therapy that's, you know, exist among public basically. And then we would like to invite you to please call us, you know, share your stories. This program is for you, and without you, this program is, you know, it's meaningless basically. We don't know if you're receiving our information. We hope that you do. So there are other ways for you to communicate with us if you don't want to call us. And by the way, our phone number is 951-922-3532. You can visit us at our YouTube, at our Facebook at KMET 1940, and also at our own Facebook, Heart to Heart. So we are there for you any way that you wish to listen to us, and in any forms of communication method that you want to choose to contact us.
Great.
Great.
So
great.
We were talking about myths of, in therapy.
Yes. So here's comes the second myth. Therapy is for crazy people.
Oh.
That's So what if I say that in psychology we don't have a vocabulary called crazy? So the sentence itself, therapy is for crazy people, it's invalid, because we do not have a vocabulary called crazy, right? Crazy, it's a lay language kind of a format that people use to degrade each other, or to degrade somebody else.
It's pejorative.
It's pejorative, right? Exactly. So if any of you are in psychology major, you know that. You look at your psychology 101, or at any level that you are, we don't have a vocabulary called crazy, right? So why people use the vocabulary crazy as in order to disqualify therapy? Who knows why? Everybody has a different reason to do that, right? But what I know about therapy, and as a clinician and as a trained professional in this field, I'm saying that we have a group of people who suffer from psychotic disorders, and they have a different level of a form of treatment, which requires psychiatric care. At times it requires hospitalization, it requires medication, right? And by no means they are not crazy. They are just people with psychotic disorders, just like any other disorders, such as hypertension, such as diabetic, such as heart disease. So it's best to understand the illness rather than labeling that in a demeaning way, right? And then there are people that they need help and they receive help, and many of them recover from their situation. So how do I know that? Because I have been one of the clinicians at hospitals helping this group of people for many years. So then I know that this happens, and none of them were crazy. They were just, had problem, psychotic problem of variety, that there are a variety of psychotic problems. So that's that. And then people usually go to therapy because they know something is not working for them. And primarily that's relationship issues. People realize that once they get into a relationship, they realize they're not happy. They realize their effort is not, getting them from point A to point B. There are lack of connections. There are problems with communication. There are problems with their sex life. So how do they, resolve that? That's where they come to therapy, because they need education, they need guidance, they need help, they need understanding, they need to know how to present their problems, and they need, first of all, even at times, to identify their problems, because they don't know what's going on with them as well. And also, none of them are crazy either. They're just, average people who are trying to make sense of what's going on in their life, and they want better for themselves, just like all of us. We all want better for ourselves, and that's why every day we are putting ourselves through the challenges of life. We go after what's better. We go after what's more important, and because we want better for ourselves. And we try to eat healthy, we try to exercise, we try to do a variety of things because we want to stay healthy. So mental health is a part of our life. We cannot separate ourselves from that. So the more we are with focus on what is not working for me, and how am I going to find out what's going on with that, and how do I resolve it, that actually shows you have a healthier mindset than the person next to you who's ignoring the problem.
Right. Yeah. One of the biggest difficulties, I think, that people experience is wanting to ignore. People want to ignore things that bother them. They put them off. They often don't think about them, or they think about them for a second and then they push them away. And when people do that,
or blame each other.
Right, they blame each other. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But what I was really getting to is what we call denial. And denial is ubiquitous throughout the human species. And denial often is us not wanting to see the problem, even though the problem is very clear to somebody else. It isn't clear to us because we don't necessarily have a resolution to it, and maybe because it seems overwhelming. So we just keep pushing it away and pushing it away and pushing it away. What happened, in Germany during the years of World War II was that a lot of the Jews were in denial of the Germans' plan for extermination and for identifying the Jews as the troublemakers in society. And so some of the Jews escaped before the Nazis put them in concentration camps, but a lot of them didn't. And part of the reason why they didn't was because of the denial. They couldn't imagine that one human being could do that to another human being.
Right.
And so you can see what happens when we're in denial. Terrible things can happen because you're not willing to look at the problem honestly. And that has to do with the first issue, which is it's all about your mother, or it's all about your mother and father. That if your mother and father, even though they may have loved you and did the best and wanted the best for you, it doesn't mean that they always knew what the best was for you or was able to give you the tools to help you get it yourself. And if you can't look at that honestly because you're busy protecting them from someone else saying something bad about them or you thinking something bad about them, then you will never understand the things that they did that were harmful to you that you keep on carrying with you and keeps affecting you, both personally and interpersonally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm glad we're talking about these things because I think, this is going to help so many, people who are listening and then clarify, some gray area. The reality is that therapy is something for everyday life. Every day we face a challenge, and if we don't have the proper tools to resolve it, or if, we may have it and we're not sure if that's going to work, that's what therapy is. And that's the something very basic about therapy. And of course there are much deeper issues like relationship issues and communication, etc., which is also, that's what part of therapy is. So the other myth is that once you get in therapy it goes on forever. So people kind of panic. Oh my God, who has the time? Who can pay for it? Is my insurance company gonna cover it? How do I know this person? How do I find? I mean, there are so many questions, and guess what? All of them are valid.
Right. Yeah, and so the belief that therapy, once you get into therapy, it goes on forever, has some basis, as many beliefs do, some basis in reality, because sometimes people go into therapy for one issue, and as they stay in therapy, they become aware that that issue has implications in other areas of their life. And so even though they may resolve that one issue, they realize that if they don't resolve some of the other issues that are related to it, that it's going to keep surfacing.
Yes.
So they do choose to stay in it for longer periods of time than they originally thought. So there is some validity to that. However, there's no therapist that's going to tell you, no therapist that is that is that is truthful with you, that is going to tell you that you have to be in therapy or should be in therapy. The therapist will just help you to, if you choose to be in therapy, that the therapist will help you to understand and to resolve the things that are important to you. And everybody is free to come and go when they want therapy. There should not be a therapy like in coaching, for example. You buy a bunch of coaching sessions and then you can renew them. It's not that way in therapy. Therapy is on a case-by-case example, and each person has to choose how often they go and whether they go.
Exactly.
And for how long they go.
For how long they go. I mean, I remember I had a couple, a while ago. The first day they came to see me, the husband was so bitter and so angry at his wife. And then they both came into his first session, and the husband didn't even want to sit down. And then he said, you know what? I brought my wife here, fix her, and I'm out of here. I don't have any issue. She's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he, as he was going to walk out, I invited him to come back and, let's just talk,
Mm-hmm.
right? So anyway, fast forward, he hasn't missed one session
Mm-hmm.
for himself, because he realized that what therapy can look like, what it was, and then he realized how he was contributing to the situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And since then, he's gone through such a personal growth that, I even myself sometimes, I'm surprised about his dedication to getting to know himself and to go through personal growth for himself to begin with, before even, looking at the relationship and how, and then he's learning how his behavior, where did they come from, how they were originated, how he became the person that, the attitude and everything that he has today, and how all of them are reflecting on his marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you used a word, and I just wanted to ask you about it. You said getting to know himself.
Yeah.
So people out there are listening, and what if they say, well, I know myself. I've been with myself my whole life. Why wouldn't I? How could I not know myself?
Okay, if you're happy with yourself, the way life is for you, then good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel, there are things that they are bothering you and you can't find the source of it, then therapy is for you,
mm-hmm.
right? For example, the same client, right? We were talking about, he cannot have a moment of relaxation to himself, because if he stays, in some place silent, or there is no activity for him, he feels kind of anxiety coming up for him. So he immediately goes to his office and he starts working and working and working, right? But that process is non-stop, simply because, he doesn't feel that he has accomplished something.
Right.
So he cannot rest. He's constantly working with the issue of, it's never enough, right? So today he brought in one of the letters he wrote to his father years ago. And he reminded his father that, you always told me that, as a player in football, soccer, I'm always the goaler. So that means I'm not doing anything, because I'm just standing there. I'm not doing anything as though I'm not supposed to do that, right? So I choose, that. So he goes to work, all the time, right? But, he was also told that he doesn't know how to play, right? So he's not going to accomplish, success in that game.
And he was told that.
He was told that. So he believed that he's never good enough for his efforts. Can you believe that? Today, he has difficulty, resting. He always goes to his office because that's his football field, pretty much, right? And also, he works constantly because he doesn't feel that, everything or anything that he does is good enough.
Yeah. So that's a wonderful example of not knowing yourself.
Not knowing yourself.
Right, because he's living according to his interpretation, which is the father may have meant what he said, or may have meant something different, but at least it's what he took from the conversations that he had with his father. And it stayed with him, and it's controlling his feelings and his behaviors.
Exactly. And, those messages were established, in his mind that way, and he gave the meaning to him that way. When we look at that Erickson's the social developmental stage, that's where, the right age to either you go through growth and, separation and believing in yourself that you can do it, independency, individuality, or what he called it, industry versus inferiority, right? So he chose the inferiority.
Well,
it's not like black and white like that.
Not totally, because he does work.
He does work, yeah.
And he has had success in his work. But it's the feeling that motivates him, which is, I'm not good enough. I got to work harder.
Yeah. And I have to work all the time, to the point that a minute of just sitting still,
right,
it's difficult for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just a simple message. I mean, but you see, this is his own belief and interpretation to that.
Right.
Yep. But like you said, whether the father meant it or not, he established it that way for himself.
Right. Yeah.
So for somebody like that, therapy may go a bit longer than somebody who just have a simple issue. So therapy is not forever. It's for as long as you need to have it. Right. So let's talk more about this after our commercial break.
Okay. We'll see you in a moment. Stay tuned.
Heart to Heart program. This is Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here. We're talking about, the myths about therapy, sex therapy, which, I hope that I can get to it about sex therapy. If not, I promise you I will continue this conversation next week, because I think it's very, very important. So please call us, 951-922-3532. Dr. Robert Jaffe and myself, we're here to help you with everyday life, issues to the best that we can through this program, and also through your contact with us, whether it is live here or whether it is through, private conversations. We welcome them all. So as part of myths about therapy, the myth is that you go to therapy, you talk, therapy stays quiet and just listens. But I tell you something, I'm completely the opposite. You see me, I'm talking here, right? So my therapy session is not a one-way communication. It's definitely talkative, because first of all, if I don't talk, I wouldn't understand. I have many questions to ask.
Good therapy, like life, is a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it needs to be both giving and receiving. And if one person is doing more of the giving, the other person is doing more of the receiving, then it needs to be evened out a little more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, therapy, as a part of communication system, a healthy communication system, and building the relationships. Obviously, one of the critical part of therapy is for me as a therapist to listen to you, so I can comprehend and I can grasp everything that you're saying. And I'm not just listening to your words, I'm listening to your tone of voice, I'm looking at your body language, I'm looking at your facial expressions. So many things are happening at the time that it's believed that I'm quiet and I'm just listening, and so that's not it. Many things are happening, and we need that listening so that we can understand what's going on, so that we can help you, set goals, and that's where conversation comes in, because there are times that, people come in with a goal in mind, but then again, when we review the goal, we have to kind of reformat it, right? So a good therapist not only listens, but also does lots of talking at the same time, right? So without the listening and talking together, a good therapy is not going to be possible, right?
Right. Yeah, because the therapist is trained to listen, and you were just talking about some of the things you're observing as you're listening. Which is why in-person therapy is actually more effective than distance therapy. although distance therapy is better than no therapy for sure. But I think of it as about 75%. You get about 75% when you're in distance therapy. You get 100% when you're in face-to-face therapy. Um,
Right.
there's a lot more that can happen in face-to-face therapy. And the other thing is you were mentioning talking and listening. Um, if the person is talking if the client is talking all the time, then they are not giving the therapist the chance to say what the therapist needs to say, and the therapist may observe that and bring it to their attention, because they if they're doing it in therapy, they're probably doing it outside of therapy.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
these are the kinds of things that your friends aren't going to necessarily tell you, but that the therapist can notice. If you're talking, or if you're not really listening, if the therapist says a couple of things and you respond as though they hadn't said anything, that's something else the therapist can notice and give back to you, so that you can be better in your communications with other people in your life.
Exactly. And I don't remember myself, at least I have to say this, and I, for the most that I know about you, uh, uh, initially, even when I meet with a new client, I have lots of questions,
Right.
because I need to get to know my client. So if I just stay quiet and let my client talk, oh, what is it that the two of us are going to accomplish there?
Right. Right. So you have a question. The client then may answer the question, and then may go on and start talking about a bunch of other things. And as long as you, as the therapist, feels like what they're talking about is revealing to you information that's important, then you can let them continue. But of course, as they're talking, they're going to be saying things, and they may not go into depth in something. So you may stop them at any point and say, "Wait a minute, say more about this."
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then, during initial, stage of therapy, clients have so much story about themselves and about what's going on to say, that they sometimes don't like to be interrupted. However, and a skillful therapist knows when to interrupt, knows when to lead, knows what to say, when to say, so that the client feels understood, client feels heard, clients feel supported, so that they can feel at ease to kind of trust the session, and also to be able to continue where they are comfortable with. And then this is how therapy starts.
So
And
you're
there are
talking about
lots of
emotional
questions.
safety.
Yes. Yes.
Emotional safety, meaning that your therapist is going to be somebody that encourages you to be your true self,
Exactly. Yeah.
and is going to help you differentiate your adapted or codependent self, which a lot of us carry inside of us. That self that we needed in order to fit in with our family of origin. We establish that self. We carry that self into our lives, but our authentic true self is perhaps something that we've learned we become out of touch with, because we had that adapted self.
Exactly. Like the example I gave you, about one of that client who, who can't stop working, right? Uh, the way I approached him, he said he was able to actually, take a look at himself.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who said, "Fix my wife and I'm out of here,"
Mm-hmm.
who became a client that he is so in it. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of him,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
And of yourself.
And of myself, yeah, I
Yes.
am proud of
Yes.
myself, because, I always look into how I can become a better therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is my own therapy, because through my own therapy, I can better understand myself. And through that better understanding of myself, I can better understand my client and better help them.
Yes.
Right? So if you are looking to select a therapist, you may want to ask your therapist if they are in therapy themselves, because see, personal growth doesn't have an expiration date. Personal growth and enhancing interpersonal skills, you can never do enough of it, even us as therapists. So this is for me, therapy may be an ongoing thing. Yes, maybe, but that doesn't mean that therapy for my clients is going to be a lifelong process. Right. Unless they choose to do that. We know that some people, they just want to be in therapy, right?
Well, they find it useful.
Useful, yeah. It keeps them happy, it keeps them supported, it keeps them, where they want to be, and they are achieving, their goals, and with that they establish a new goal, and that is part of their personal growth, right?
Right.
So a therapist is not a quiet person. At least I know of those that I know of. None of us are quiet people, you know. And because if you're quiet, who's going to help the client?
Right. Yeah. So that being said, I also think that therapists are trained listeners.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's an old expression that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, that we may listen twice as much as we speak. And I think that there's some truth in that if we listen, we learn a lot about the other person if the other person is sharing. And that doesn't mean that we don't speak or that we don't speak a lot, but it means that we really pay attention to what the other person is experiencing and help them understand what's going on inside of them about things that they haven't yet realized about themselves.
Exactly.
It's about the subconscious. The book that we're kind of working on, sort of, because we're working on this other book. This is entitled "The Subconscious Runs the Show," and people really don't, for the most part, understand what the subconscious is, how it operates, and what effect does the subconscious have in their lives. And I think that would be a really good topic for us to talk about also at some point. Our subconscious is always operating. Yes. Our subconscious is always operating. When we're sleeping, when we're awake, when we're daydreaming, the subconscious is always operating. And so understanding how it's operating and what it's doing gives us a lot more choices in life. Because we realize what's really going on with us, that is working for us and that is not working for us.
Exactly. Yes, that's a very good point, and that brings me, to the acceptance and commitment to therapy. Right? Therapy is not a quick fix process. Where this is something that some group of, some people, they want that. They think they come in, we have a magical pill, we're going to give it to them, they're going to take it, and just because they came to therapy, so they are right about the presenting problem.
Yeah, I'm going to say that in some cases it can be done quickly. Yes. There are cases where I do hypnosis as well, and there are cases when people have come in with a problem like stopping smoking, for example, which sometimes can be done in 1 or 2 sessions. There can be other problems that can be addressed and sometimes can be done quickly. But what we're talking about is dealing with people about helping them understand themselves better. And to understand yourself better does take time.
Yes, it does. And, to understand yourself better and accepting that maybe, it's your belief that's running you in a negative way. It is the assumptions or whatever is going on. And see, the problem is, some people believe that they, if something is not going for them the way they want it, then there must be something wrong, or there must be something. It just becomes such a devastating situation for them, right? And there are people that they point finger at, it's his fault, it's her fault, and all of that. But we're not disregarding that. But also what is important to look at is, however, people are, responding to a given situation is a reflection of who they are and how they believe and how they think. However, what's important to look at is, how am I responsible for the way I react, I respond to situation, and what do I believe that makes me suffer the way I suffer.
Right. So what you're talking about then is taking responsibility for your response.
Right.
And so you can actually see responsibility as two words.
Right.
Responsibility. Or the ability to respond rather than react.
Yes. So I always say, and I have seen this out somewhere, I saw this and it stayed with me, that gaining your personal power is about first becoming aware of what's going on and how you're involved in what, the situation, and then take responsibility to change it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We can't expect somebody else to do that.
Well, we do all the time.
We do all the time.
We expect someone else. So I would say then that the process of therapy, one part of it is moving from victim mentality to creator mentality.
Creator mentality, yes.
Victim mentality is starts with all of us when we're young. We are victimized in positive and negative ways. We use the word victim in a negative sense, but we are dependent, and so the people who take care of us, who may be trying to do their best, don't always do things that are positive for us, and so when we're little, we can't really say anything about it other than yes, we have to do it their way.
Yes.
But growing and maturing means that at some point we realize that we're no longer children, and we have the power within us to make our own decisions for what's right for us.
Well, thank you. And with that, and actually that's a link to our next program at 4 o'clock with Dr. Jaffe and myself about codependency, trauma, addictions, and relationships. So I'm inviting you to join us at the hour, 4 o'clock, and also inviting you to join us again next Thursday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Human Sexuality and Sexual Health Care with both of us. And until the next hour and next week, all you need is love.
All you need is love. Bye-bye.